Hey guys, a warm welcome to the lunar eclipse that's coming up, and that's happening tomorrow. And it is, I've got some data to read, but I'm showing you currently the chart from astro-seek, so horoscopes.astro-seek.com. Go there and you can get your own birth chart. You see here, you can get your birth natal chart, but you do need your birth time because otherwise you're not going to get your rising sign. And the rising sign is imperative in astrology because then you'll know where the planets are falling, what houses they're falling into. And I'll explain that when I show you my own chart. So what we have is this is the chart of the eclipse. It's slightly different to the full moon time because normally a full moon is opposite directly. You can see here, there's the sun at 16 degrees and the moon there is just a little bit out. You can see what's very interesting about this coming up is that we have the moon is conjunct Uranus, and it's also, this can be quite shocking. So, and also the North Node, so it's our path. They play out over 6 months, and you need to look at where it's falling in your own chart. For me, this is falling in my 6th house, which is work and routines and health matters. And I've got some nice aspects to this, so you want to look at that too. So we know that the solar eclipse is happening in the UK. It will be at 11 a.m., I do believe. I think the clock's changed, so I get a bit lost on catching up with the change of time. It's 8th of November 2022, and it's at 15:59 Taurus. So it's a moon, yeah? And the sun is in Scorpio. And we know that we're in Scorpio season because we've got Venus and we've got the sun and we've got also Mercury all in the sign of Scorpio, opposite to mainly the Mercury, and we can see is also touching in with the sun there in the opposition. So we have retrogrades that have been going on, and then we're going to have some planets going direct. Just wear these so I can see properly. So Neptune will go direct on December 4th. And then we've got, I'm just looking at what else is going on here. Jupiter goes direct on November 23rd. We'll start there. Jupiter goes direct on, so Jupiter currently is in 29 degrees of Pisces. It's just gone back. And then on the 23rd of November, it will go direct at 28 degrees of Pisces. Then we've got Uranus is in the new year, that will go direct. Neptune is going to go direct on December 4th. And then Pluto went direct on October 8th, and Chiron will also go direct in December, which is the wounded healer, on December 23rd at 11 degrees of Aries. So eclipses carry a signature, then it's where we get a shake up, and it's really important we look at the areas. With solar eclipses, they're slightly different to the lunar. So a solar eclipse is opening a new chapter to our lives. So for me, that happened in my 11th house. So that's my hopes and dreams. So you want to look at the houses, as I said, because that's important. So if you remember that a solar eclipse is opening a new chapter in our life and it influences our personality. A lunar eclipse is a full moon. And what it is, it's where, so by the way, a solar eclipse is a new moon, yeah? A lunar eclipse is where our relationships with others, that's what becomes important. And in our friendships and romantic or any relationships or family, we're put to the test. So this is a time when relationships will be put to the test. And we'll have to remember that it plays out over 6 months. And then in the house, so for me, it will be with my work, so, and being of service. So I'll probably see that play out there. And then what enables us to, it also, this lunar eclipse enabled us to see people for who they are, which is really fantastic for some of us because we can sometimes be caught in a situation that's just been ongoing and going nowhere, and we'll be able to see more clearly, for better and for worse. This is the thing. So not all endings are tragic because some endings allow for new things to take place. It can bring up something that needs to be resolved and has existed for some time as well. So in that, things don't have to end. It just means that something gets looked at and then understood and redirected. It also will produce strong emotions around us, of other people, and there can be hysteria, there can be coercion, there can be verbal fights and fear. And it's advisable during this time to avoid large groups during this time, because also we can act on impulse or pressure from other, because the sun is opposite to the moon at that time. So now we're going to go over to look at my chart. I'm going to show you, and I'll come back to this, and then we're going to, when I've come back to this, then we'll go over to solar fire, because I think people who watch me like to see the chart moving. So for me, if I look here, you'll see that this is my daily horoscope. So for this type of chart, you will go to astro.com, which is another great site I use. The thing I find about AstroSeek, which the one I just showed you, if you're a beginner, then you'll be able to get more definition of what that means. I find it it's a little bit more complex on this. It's a brilliant site, but it's more linking in with whether you can read a chart or not and understand. So this is my chart. So what we'll see, if I get and we'll read what Taurus means as well, because Taurus is a beautiful sign. It's a beautiful energy. It's ruled by Venus, so it's to do with beauty as well. And our inner needs, inward needs. Venus also ruling Libra is more to do with the outer, what's going on. So I'll get my marker here. Okay, so what you can see is that the moon currently is, because it's the moon, it's coming up to, so in 12 hours from now, it's going to be, from 12 hours that I'm sitting here making this video, it's going to be a lunar eclipse in the sign of Taurus. So you can see for me, the moon is already in my 6th house, and you can see there, if it hits 15 degrees, my Mercury is in Taurus, 23, my Mars is 24, and my North Node is 25, and then my Sun is 0 degrees Gemini, which you may not see there. If I do that, that's my Sun, and then my Moon is 17 degrees Gemini. So when we look at a chart, what we're looking for is, the solar eclipse happened at, I think it was 2 degrees. So my solar eclipse happened in my 11th, and which is very good for me, because I'm doing things in groups and more of the hopes and dreams, not just my own, but collectively, where we're at in exchanging information, and also friendships as well. That involves my friendships. And with this here, for me, this is what you would look at. You'd look at your chart and you would ask yourself, where is 15 degrees of Taurus? And that's where it's falling. And then you would look at the aspects going on to that. So I've got some really good aspects to this. If you look at the sun here, it's sextile to, because the sun is at 16 degrees. So that sun is sextile to my Pluto and my Uranus. And it's also sextile, it's on my Neptune. So that isn't, this is going to be generational as well. People that were born in the 60s, because many people, the year I was born, it would have been roughly 20 degrees, and the sun is at 16. So if you have your sun between, let's say, give it an orb 5 degrees either side, you could say, if it's 15, you could say 10 degrees and then up to 25 as an example, but people will use wider orbs sometimes. You can see I've got a lot of 12th house stuff going on here, and this is where I'm at. So I've been quite inward the last week or so. I've been taking care of my inner needs and my consciousness. I've been having a lot of dreams, like really weird dreams, but I had 3. Did some self-hypnosis this afternoon, and I fell into a sleep, and within that short nap I had, which was about an hour, less than an hour, I had 3 major dreams that were really pulling me into the dream state and felt very real to me. So it's quite interesting. What I'm going to do is I could look more at these aspects, but I've explained that. So what you're looking for is how is the sun connecting to planets, and how is the moon, mainly the moon in this case, but what is the moon up to? So you can see the moon, if it's at 15, then it's linking in with my Venus, and then you would look at what else it's linking in with, and whether it's trining things as well. So at this point, there's some trines going on there, so it's trining into my Pluto as well. Looks like that. So let's see. Now I'm gonna share screen to go to Solar Fire. So if you look here, this is the chart of winter. And let me know where it is for you in your chart, because I get quite interested how this plays out for other people, and this 6 monthly thing as well. Actually, what I want to do is go back to, I want to go back here. The spotlight. Okay, so if you look at this, what's going on is that you can see this conjunction going on here. We've got 0 degrees because that's where I'm starting the chart, because it's collective. And then the planets are going to be the same for everybody at the time. And it's going to be, it would be anyway, I don't really need to say that, but we've got the North Node, which is conjunct the moon. So I'm going to read some of these aspects out, and we're going to look at what Taurus means as well. And then I'll go and we'll move over, because we've also got this Mars that's gone retrograde as well. So there's going to be a lot, it's probably good to get some exercise going on, or get some energy out there, because you may feel quite pent up if you don't. So you want to look at, for me, that Mars is in my 7th house of relationships. So that could create some feistiness going on, but in a good way. It means where I stand up for myself. And normally with my sun and moon in my 7th house, I tend to give a lot of leeway to people, and I don't punch back often. And it's a time for me to step forward and for it to be about me. So I'm pleased that Mars is working out for me in the 7th house. The keywords for Taurus, which you might like to know, this is from evolutionary astrology, but pretty standard stuff. Taurus keywords: self-sufficiency, security. It's where we can feel isolated. It's withdrawal. It's stagnation, personal worth, personal value. It can be to do with poverty. It can be to do with starvation as well. And we look at what's going on with the food thing, and you look at that Uranus in Taurus, and how the farming has been a bit messed up at the moment, and food supplies not coming through. We've got personal value, self-esteem. So think about that Taurus. It's an eclipse. It's about our own self-esteem. Patience. It's where we can hoard. It's where we can be stubborn, shut down, suppress emotions. It's to do with the body. It's to do with pleasure. It's where we can be cautious, materialistic, literal. It's landowner, possessions, farmer, thief, carpenter, survival, fertility. Now, we've got huge things going on with fertility at the moment. If you want to look at John Campbell on YouTube, Dr. John Campbell, and he's talking about this issue along with other issues to do with the body as well. Things going on with the body currently. I'm sure you're in line if you've been following through what's going on. It's procreation, it's preservation, self as a resource. So we're having to learn to be more resourceful, as we all know, during this period. And that's the Uranian energy going on there. And also Uranus is past life, long-term trauma, beyond this memory, beyond the subjective of the Gemini, like here and now. It's to do with our values, and it's to do with beauty as well. So what else can I tell you? So we want to look at the aspects that I'm going to show you. And I've gone through that. So also I wanted to mention that do look at John Campbell. It's really important that people understand what's going on at the moment. YouTube, I might put a link in fact, I won't put a link below. Just go to John Campbell's page and check it out. I've been looking at the moment, I'm reading a book, but I'm doing it through Audible. So reading, but listening and going back over it. The Hero with 1,000 Faces by not John Campbell, Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell, this is a different Campbell, Joseph Campbell, and it's 14 hours on Audible, and I highly recommend it. And I'll tell you that the reason would be that it's a lot to do with myth, and in astrology, a lot of this goes back thousands of years, and it's to do with mythology and beyond that. You know, if you look at the old-fashioned vases or in caves, people were, you know, drawing the stars. They were looking at the sky, and then they were putting their ideas onto ceramics and pottery and jewelry and art. And it's important to understand the deeper sense of astrology and not just the superficial meaning of it. And if you look at the stars and the constellations, you know, it's quite amazing that we're flying through space at 67,000 miles an hour and that we're having this earthly experience. And what's beyond this, I'm 50-50 on past lives. So sometimes I'm into it and sometimes I've got no idea. You know, I get a bit lost in the idea. But I think with my North Node in Taurus, naturally, I'm here more to roll up my sleeves rather than go too spiritual and too sort of out there, because my Neptune is also in my, let me show you, my Neptune is in my 12th house on my South Node. So I've been out there, I've been lost in space, so to speak. So this lifetime, it's more direct energy, Mars conjunct the North Node, conjunct Mercury. So I'm expressing, and it's through being of service, and then up here investigating things as well. So, and sharing that knowledge with people because of my 7th house stuff. So we can see we're really individual, and that will really be dependent on that rising sign. I'm 27 degrees Scorpio. So stop share. Whoops. Let's go back to this. There you go. So now we're back to the solar fire chart, which is the chart of tomorrow in the UK time. And we got the sun opposing the moon, which is our emotions and feelings, our opposites of the ego. And the sun is our individuality. So it's conflicts. It can cause conflicts anyway with a full moon. The sun is conjunct Mercury. And this is where our subject is subjective and creative, and it's also where people have this, you know, can perform on stage. I have this naturally as well. I have the sun conjunct, so I'm able to speak quite easily in public. The sun conjunct Venus is beautiful. It's the feminine characteristics of both sexes, and it's also artistic and creative inclinations. You see there? We got, let me get my pointer again. Spotlight. So you can see the sun, maybe you can't see it if my camera's in the way yet. The Venus is conjunct Mercury, the sun and Venus all beautifully together, opposite to all of this going on here. So then we got the sun square Saturn, which it can create two different types of things, like two different types of things going on here. It's when we can encounter problems, and then the second is where that problems stimulate us to find the answers. And the sun opposing Uranus is where we can be too individualistic and selfish. And we want to watch out for that, because there's a lot of people that, you know, are not taking other people into consideration and can be quite unkind. And we don't want to lose our kindness. I wrote a little something the other day. We don't want to be overly, you know, being nice all the time is not the way to go, but we don't want to be unkind to people. And I've seen people that have lived, you know, as long as I have on earth, and they just don't get the kindness thing. There's no need for that. You know, this is part of maturing. It's understanding about being kind and taking other people's circumstances, but don't be a doormat either, and don't be a fool. Like, if people don't get it, then, you know, don't deal with them. You don't have to deal with people that aren't, who are purposefully choosing not to understand you. It's okay to walk away from that. There's 8 billion of us on planet Earth. So the sun opposing, it's where we can go to extremes. The sun opposing Uranus, where we can go to extremes, and we can have trouble accepting authorities. And sometimes we can see that why that's occurred, that people have trouble accepting authority over them. The Sun trine Neptune is sentimental, it's good for relationships, and it gives us good manners. So you see there, the Sun trine beautifully. It's moving into a trine, it's not an exact trine. And then we could almost say, not quite Jupiter, but definitely Neptune trining over there. Neptune is beyond the veil. It's way out there. A moon opposition Venus, and it can create confusion about our real feelings and emotional needs. So this will create some confusion for us, and that's okay too, because confusion can bring clarity eventually. I could do the moon octile, Jupiter, like semi-squares, but I'm not going to bother with those. The moon square to Saturn, it's where we're unable to express our feelings. And if we have that in our natal chart as an example, and it's where we need some stability and we need to feel safe. So we need a sense of safety. The moon conjunct Uranus is, we want emotional freedom. And it gives us where we want constant change. And it's also where we can have emotional outbursts. So you can see this moon could be really tricky because there may be emotional outbursts. I haven't checked the news for the last few days of what's going on, but there's a lot to have emotional outbursts about out there, that's for sure. And a full moon can make people quite impulsive. So I'm with all that 12th house stuff I've got going on, I'm staying at home. That's what I'm up to. So the Mercury square Saturn, it can be a serious mental process going on. Mercury opposing Uranus is where we want, again, independence, and we can force our opinions on other people. We don't want to be doing that either. People can think what they want to think. An opinion is an opinion. There's very few things that are actually absolute real. Like people will look at something and they'll have an opinion about something. So, is it worth getting into an argument with somebody about their opinion over something? If it is an opinion, if something's real and somebody's being hurt, that's a whole different matter. Venus square Saturn can make us reserved and hesitant as well, because Venus is beauty and Saturn is restriction. So you see Venus is square to Saturn here, and that's exact. And, in fact, the moon is square, but the Venus is in there as well. It is square. It's not exact. It's 2 degrees off, but it's Venus opposition to Uranus. Again, it's about personal freedom. So collectively, we want personal freedom. And, monetary stuff is taking away people's freedom as well. Venus trine Neptune. It's quite beautiful. It's compassion. We need some of that going. And then Mars trine Saturn, it's where we can get on with things without getting too overtired, because there's a lot of energy there. The node, if we look at the node on the moon, or the node is what we have an instinctive urge. This is really important because it is the full moon. The node conjunct the moon is where we want to set out on a path shown by the lunar node. So we want to set out on a path, partly unconsciously perceive and exploit possibilities associated with that house. So we'll unconsciously exploit that area. And exploitation is not always a bad thing. It's like exploiting, what we do or what we want to do. The moon and its demands on emotional safety can be opposed on the lunar node. So it can make us a bit irritable and unhappy. But again, we can monitor our emotions. The node conjunct Uranus, and I'm going to leave it there for today after this bit. The positive thing is that it gives us the desire to search for new and original ways to deal with life's challenges and the development of individuality. We're checking in that it is in harmony with the focal point of our lives. So the negative, or the not so great part about this, is that it's where we want to live in a way that according to our own rules without taking any rules into consideration, which can be too much. You can see that like in war zone situations, people make up their own rules and a lot of people get hurt. So it's a bit of both. And we can look at that even in simplistic terms. If people just have their own rules, it's like we need rules to a degree, but they have to be fair. And then it can also make it very difficult to concentrate on what's really important to us. So I'm going to leave it there for today, but have a great lunar eclipse, and just chill out tomorrow if you can, and take it easy, and then get into things, and step back. It's okay to step back and to think things through, and remove the compulsive behaviors that a lot of us have, that we unconsciously are acting based on past memories, relationships, and things that have gone on in our past, and projecting that onto people in our lives currently, which is not always ideal. And we have to look at that if we're maturing and evolving. Anyway, that's it for today. And I'm going to leave it there, and I'll catch you later. Thanks for watching.